Hey all. First of all, I got to start off with an apology. I know I promised you that we'd have the Piedmont bird callers tonight, but apparently they've got a raging plague of mono running through the Piedmont High School, and the kids just aren't up to calling right now. So instead, I thought I'd talk to you today about hitchhiking. For you kids out there, hitchhiking was what people did before everybody had cars. You'd go out, you'd stick your thumb in the air, and somebody'd pick you up, and 8 times out of 10, you got safely to where you were going. And I bring this up because I just saw somebody on mention something somewhere recently about hitchhiking, and it seems like it has all but disappeared for various reasons. I think a lot of it is probably fear of people afraid to take ride from strangers, people afraid to pick up strangers. And I think this is one of those things where I really don't think the world is more dangerous now than it was. I just think, and, and, and I am not going to say the mainstream media, but I think, all the media, the TV, internet, the sensational type stories have made people more afraid of things. And that's why you just don't see it anymore. But again, just to get back to the way it used to be, for those of you too young to know, I know, like here in Osceola, you're looking for a ride. Most people, they go up by the corner up there where we now have the traffic light, and you'd go up and stick out your thumb. Somebody'd come along, where you headed to, and you'd say Phillipsburg, Black Shannon, whatever. Hop in, I'm going that way, and they'd take and drop you off. And that was just pretty much common. A few times, I know you'll find this hard to believe about me, but I sometimes would sleep in, and I'd miss the school bus, and I'd just walk down to the highway and stick out my thumb, and usually it'd only take a couple minutes. A lot of times it'd be somebody who was lucky enough to have a car to drive to school would stop and get me. And the one time, the biggest hitchhiking trip I ever did was to Dayton, Ohio. My college roommate, when he graduated, he had moved to Dayton. He got a job out there. And I went out to visit him. And I remember, pretty sure I got a ride from my then sister-in-law out to Interstate 80. Then I got on 80 and I started hitchhiking west. And I remember along the way, some of the people I met. There was one, I think it might have been the very first ones that picked me up on 80. A van came along, and it was full of guys about my age, which at the time I was like 19 or 20. And I thought, oh, a bunch of guys headed off to California or whatever. And so I was talking to the one guy in the back there where I was sitting. I said, where are you guys headed? And he said, oh, I'm going to St. Louis. He says, but that guy over there, he's headed to Chicago or someplace. They were all going to different places. Here, the driver who owned the van, he was traveling by himself cross country, and so he was just stopping to pick up people along the way. And so they took me pretty good distance. And I also remember on the way out I was in Ohio, and a guy picked me up, and I don't even know what city he took me to. You know, I mean, anybody who's been there knows Ohio is pretty unmemorable. But anyway, and it was at night, and he said, "Have you eaten?" I said, "No, not since I left Pennsylvania 12 days ago, or maybe 8 hours. I don't know, somewhere in there." And he said, "Well, I'll drop you off at the White Castle." Now, I had never been to White Castle in my life. I know I'd heard them mentioned on TV or something, but I'd never actually been to one. And I go into this White Castle and I look at the menu and I thought, well, these burgers are pretty cheap. And I don't even remember what they were, you know, like 15 cents a piece or something ridiculous. Anyway, so I went up to the counter and I said to the guy, I said, "I'll have a cheeseburger and a Pepsi." And the guy at the counter goes, "Just one cheeseburger?" And I didn't say anything. And I was like, "Yeah, just one, smart ass." But, I said, "Yeah, just one." And then when I got the burger, now, any of you who've been to White Castle or knows White Castle now knows why he said just one. Because, I'd never heard of sliders before, which I guess is what White Castle burgers are. And then, well, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I think everybody probably knows what those King's rolls are that they're advertising all the time now, the small dinner rolls. Well, basically, that's what the size of a White Castle burger was. They were basically made to be, eaten 6 at a time or something. But anyway, so that was my educational experience for that trip. And I continued on. I got to Dayton at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And I think when I got close, I grabbed a taxi. A guy had dropped me off by a hotel, and I grabbed a taxi there and went the rest of the way to my roommate's apartment. It was like 2 in the morning. I woke him up. And just to tell you something about me, what he said was, "Wow, what are you doing here?" Because I never bothered to call and say, "Hey, I'm coming out to visit you." So anyway, I hung out with him for a couple of days. I remember we went to visit it was there's some kind of airplane museum there. Uh, well, I think it might be. Is that where Wright-Patterson Air Base is? Hey, Lenny, are you watching this? You'd know. Because it seems like because the Wright brothers were dating, weren't they? Because I remember there was a lot of military planes and stuff. But then after a couple of days, I hitchhiked home again and had another interesting experience with one of the guys that picked me up. A guy picked me up in a Mercedes. And it was an older guy and a younger guy. And I'm sitting in the back. And the younger guy kept saying to the driver, "Slow down, you don't have to be driving so fast. Watch where you're going." And I thought, is this his son or what's going on? He just kept yelling at the driver, and then the driver was just, okay. And it turned out the guy that was doing all the yelling was also a hitchhiker. And I couldn't believe that driver, if it had been me, it'd have been, "You don't like my driving? You can get out." So anyway, that was that trip. Like I said, that was the only long hitchhiking trip I ever made. Um, Other than that, it was just like around here, going down to Phillipsburg, a couple of times out to Blackie, that sort of thing. Once or twice, my brother thumbed out to Pittsburgh to visit me when I was living out there. But that's it for today's episode. And again, I apologize for the Piedmont bird callers. Maybe if they get healthy, we can rebook them. Because I'd love to hear, the mating call of the African sparrow. Bye. Oh, I guess I should add should I end now with all the time with peace out, huh? It's always good to have that tagline. Anyway.